And joining us now to take a look at that ever-changing weather forecast for the week ahead, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient. Eric, great to have you back on, sir. Hope you had a great weekend.
Yeah, I did, and I was in the cooler part of the country here this week, and all the heat was to my west. So I kind of enjoyed a nice Saturday and Sunday around here. But I know the heat's coming back, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that heat here in a second, but kind of getting us into that heat, we've seen some showers, thunderstorms, some parts of the central corn belt, western belt, northern plains here the last week or so, and even seeing some of that here today across parts of Iowa and coming out of Nebraska and South Dakota. It looked like a little bit some areas that could have stood to get another drink here before some of this heat rolls in, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the surprise storms that came across parts of Iowa last night, early this morning, which came out of parts of Nebraska and South Dakota, was just a huge benefit. Even though there were some damaging winds and some hail in those, uh, overall, the missed forecast, which turned out to be great, just because it delivered rain, was pretty good. None of the models really picked up on the old decaying storms capable of producing new storms, and that's what happens. That's a product of trying to forecast weather in summer. It's very tricky to do. So those storms are going to really add some moisture to an area that's going to need it, because you're right, the heat's going to come back on. And if you didn't get rain and good storms over the last 7 to 8 days, then the upcoming forecast is going to present some problems throughout the Corn Belt, throughout the Midwest, and throughout the plains, given the repositioning of this big ridge. It's going to bring in heat and the risk of drier weather. So, yeah, I think a lot of folks there were pleasantly surprised. We woken up by lightning and thunder last night.
Well, and we talk of this heat and dryness and this ridge setting back up here over pretty much of the western corn belt. It sounds like, I mean, we're talking pretty lofty temperatures right as we get into that corn pollination time, Eric.
Yeah, so today the heat's in Texas and the heat's in California. They're going to be seeing triple digit heat there. And what we're going to watch all week is the cooler weather that's been over the eastern corn belt heading east. That's going to just be gone. And we're going to see 100-degree heat stretching from Texas all the way up to South Dakota. It's going to expand into the upper 90s across much of the Midwest, getting into the eastern corn belt by the end of the week and weekend. And the ridge is placed over the Great Basin, but the effect of it is felt throughout the plains. Now, just remember, this is the time of year that it's typically the hottest, right? So we're adding 5 to 7, maybe up to 10 degrees above normal during the hottest time of year. So we're going to very rapidly accumulate, heat stress. So there's a great thing out there. Dr. Elwin Taylor, back after I think the 2012 drought, wrote an interesting paper about something he called stress degree days. It's basically adding up the temperature above 86 Fahrenheit. And his research, which was for dryland farming in Iowa, suggested that if you got above 140 of these stress degree day units throughout a growing season, that it's pretty hard to have above trend yield. And we, after the next 2 weeks, will be knocking on the door throughout a big section of the Corn Belt at having already accumulated well over 120 to 140 of these units. So this is the wrong time of year to be talking about heat and drought, given that the crop was planted late. And I'll just tell you something. I drove home from vacation on Saturday from northern Wisconsin to central Illinois. I did not see a single field on I-39 that was tassel yet. So we know that risk is still ahead of us here as we start to see the heat build into that region.
I've seen some chatter, some folks saying that, oh, well, if it does turn dry here, the crop will still survive if we go a few weeks without some rain. But it's a real fine line, Eric, isn't it?
It is. How it survives is if you got the soil moisture, right? So if you got moisture in the soil, the crop can use it. The crop's designed to keep itself cool as best it can. But if that moisture is not there, then the crop becomes defensive. That's plant physiology. It's cool stuff, right? So if the moisture is not there, it takes more of the energy to basically protect itself than to put all that sugar into basically growing a seed. So we get worried because this is the time of year that we need that to happen and happen efficiently, so that we can have the kind of yields we need to really just to finally bring the whole world back up to an appropriate level in terms of that global balance sheet. So I think we're going to be seeing the potential for weather to become a major news story in the markets over the next 2 to 3 weeks and possibly beyond, because we still haven't taken the risk of drought redeveloping in August, which will hit beans really hard. That's not off the table yet either, given this La Nina.
Well, and you mentioned that La Nina, that was where I was going to go next. We're still seeing that kind of encompass things, and sometimes that could make for interesting forecasts and wondering what thunderstorms are going to do, because we tend to get some of those convective thunderstorms that may pop into the forecast from time to time.
They do, and where we see historically La Ninas having the biggest influence is really right in the Midwest and the central United States. So the storms run around the ridge, and so therefore the northern plains, the Canadian prairie's taken a beating over the last 7 days. Anyways, they could continue to get those ridge riding storms. They come into the upper Midwest. They could crash through the eastern Corn Belt, but essentially it's one of those things that the farther west you go, the greater the risk is of not seeing them. We hope for more surprises like we saw in Iowa this morning, but the reality of it is that at this point in the year, my kind of meter here is more on the drought risk side than it is on the thunderstorm saving the day side of things.
Eric, anything else across the U.S. you're watching here this week?
The southeast is getting a lot of rain, just a whole bunch of rain. So if there was any concern about crops going in the southeast to the mid-Atlantic for droughts, they're going to be seeing quite a bit of moisture from a very weak tropical disturbance. And I also just want to bring that up. We are right now at the beginning of the tropical season. I know it begins back in June, but it doesn't start ramping up till the end of July. And August and September and October are the big months. So we need to be watching for the tropics to send in a wild card, and I'll keep doing that every day. Right now, the only thing I'm watching is the storms in the southeast. Nothing big on the horizon, at least as I can see out the next 5 to 7 days there.
And Eric, as well, real quick, anything else you're watching abroad, either Europe or South America right now?
Yeah, in South America, a lot of it's just about the winter crops that are grown there. They've transitioned away from what we thought was going to be a very dry pattern, and we've seen some better moisture in the models. Europe is still the wild card. The new long range forecast that came out from Europe last week just wanted to paint the whole of it hot and dry for the remainder of summer. So we got to watch for some regional drought development. China's my wild card. Yangtze River Basin is very dry right now, but the North China Plain, the Manchurian Plains, if you're a corn and soybean grower, those are the two areas you watch most carefully. They're showing up wet. Makes me wonder if they're going to have some pressures on the other side of it, right? You have the fungal pressures, you have the problems with not enough sunlight because the models continue to throw up very wet conditions there. But I can't really put my thumb on an area on the world that's going like, oh no, this place is having a phenomenal year, big broad area of great crop growth. It seems as though this La Nina robbing momentum from the whole planet's jet stream pattern is creating problems for a lot of folks.
Well, we'll continue to watch the forecasts ahead, and we appreciate the time as always with that Eric Snodgrass of Nutrient. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, you bet.